Good evening. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. We are Ground Level Theater. I am Michael Magenta, the company playwright, and your host for this evening. For the last 9 months, we've all lived in an existence of visual communication through technology. Google Chats, FaceTime, Zoom calls. Through these small portals, these windows in our screens, we have stayed connected with our coworkers, doctors, friends, and family. Tonight's show tells 8 stories from this time, shared for you by voices from behind locked doors.
He's coming. But let me start. How has our relationship been affected by being shut in together? Quite honestly, we're fine. We've been married for 34 years. We retired last year, pre-pandemic, and made a lot of plans for the future. Most are obviously on hold, but we're together all the time.
You know where the bird seed is?
We're doing this thing, remember?
Oh, yeah. Bird seed.
You finished it yesterday. You were going to order some more.
Yeah, shoot. What are the birds gonna do?
Exactly what they did before you hung the bird feeder. They'll go out to eat. We're doing this now. Please, come, sit down.
Birds are people too, you know.
The very fact that you call them birds is proof that they are not people.
You're crabby today.
We are doing this now and only this.
Sorry. Can we start over?
We're not being recorded. This is live.
Sorry. What are we talking about again?
How being cooped up together for all these months has affected our relationship.
Not one bit. This marriage is solid as a rock. 35 years and never an unhappy moment.
34 years.
35.
34 years. We have been married for 34 years. Our next anniversary is our 35th.
Are you sure?
Yes, and before you start counting on your toes, you promised to take me on a cruise around the Greek islands for our 35th anniversary. Have you done that yet?
No.
34 years.
Hey, what if cruises don't exist anymore?
Oh, that's a terrible thing to think about. What changes the world will go through? Oh, not that cruises are all that important, but everything will be different.
Well, to the cruise industry, cruises are essential.
Oh, you know what I mean.
I could get you Greek food.
What?
You know, rather than the cruise, I could get you Greek food.
Yeah, that's just what I want. A gyro for our wedding anniversary.
Oh, it wouldn't have to be a gyro. You can order whatever you want.
The cruise was not going to be about the food or the culture. The point was being away with you, cut off from everyday life.
Oh, then we're on a cruise right now because we are cut off from the world. Our house is our cabin. The patio is our deck.
I guess.
But I do love a good gyro.
Will you be quiet?
Have we answered your question? You see? We're the lucky ones. This is our relationship. It always has been. We love being together. Pushing buttons. How our relationship has changed. Now there's an underlying fear for our family, our friends, the world. But that's what everybody's going through. We have each other, and we are so very lucky. Come back.
No.
Come get a kiss.
No.
She'll be back. She always comes back for the kiss.
So, in an effort to make the most of my unemployment and at the same time maintain my sanity, I created a list of projects to accomplish around the house. Of course, my goal was to find work, but in a world not hiring, it was tough. So I started on my list. Number 1, reorganize our cabinets. Number 2, clean out the refrigerator and freezer. Number 3, put all the winter coats and such in storage. And number 4, straighten up the garage. This list took 3 days to complete. So I started on my second list. But this time, there was only one item: build the workbench. Several months ago, I had purchased materials to build a workbench. The list of supplies that I ordered were still on top of the pile, but the instructions were gone. So I went back to the net to find the correct instructions for the lumber I bought. That search also took 3 days to complete. And all I came away with was a bread recipe. The perfect one for a non-baker. A simple, no-knead loaf to be baked in a cast-iron Dutch oven. After an hour of baking, the smell reached my wife's office. She came running down the stairs. What is that? My wife believes that fresh bread and butter is one of the simplest satisfactions in the world. I jumped in front of the oven like a pit bull. It's not ready, young lady. You may return to your desk now. Oh, we are fortunate she still has her job, and luckier still that she can work from home. Unfortunately, the next hour was torture for both of us. She kept yelling down the stairs, "Is it ready? Oh, it smells so delicious. Is it ready?" The delight that I felt as she ate the bread was incredible. Truly was my first feeling of accomplishment in weeks. Lists be damned. For the next 24 hours, she sent me recipe after recipe, baguettes, croissants, bagels, dinner rolls, and scones. I read every recipe, solely searching for the phrase simple. But every item required a skill I did not have, or a commitment I was unwilling to give. I finally sent her a text back. The bakery is closed. Back to the workbench. I finally located the correct instructions, and I started. After a few days, 5, not 3, the bench was complete. I loaded all the tools from the cardboard box to their new home. I felt nothing. No pride, no satisfaction, because in reality, I didn't need a workbench and will most likely never use it except as an oversized toolbox. But my biggest regret was that it had been too easy. I found a design that was uncomplicated and I executed it. So, I have changed my approach to my job search. I was no longer looking for a job that might be easy to get. I mean, this hunt for employment was not going to be simple. I would need to work at getting a position that required more of me than I had given in the past. I think this should be our guide for the future. All of us pushing ourselves and our world to create something new. An existence that's not so easily disrupted. Life with the beauty of a loaf of bread, but the stability of a workbench. Time to start the baguettes.
I am a man of profound faith. I don't follow any religion. I have confidence in people. I rely on the greatness of the world. I have trust that good will triumph over evil. And above all, I believe in God. I am dedicated to the power of that higher force. On the day that my father was taken from the nursing home to the hospital, I was not overly alarmed. He had made that trek many times. He was susceptible to urinary tract infections. They would wreak havoc with his body and mind. He was compromised already by being in bed almost constantly. He was fighting a dastardly course of dementia that had taken away his ability to walk. People saw differences in his behavior, but to me, he was the same man that raised me, the same man that taught by example how to be a husband, how to be a father, how to be a grandfather. He was the same man who taught me that there is always hope. Because of the worldwide state of things, once he was admitted to the hospital, along with the treatment for his infection, he was given a COVID test. 4 days later, the doctors called and said he was positive for COVID, that his lungs were beyond repair, and that there was no hope. I screamed, "Don't say that, he's my dad. There is always hope. He's my dad." I had one final opportunity to see my father. A nurse, an angel, really, set up a FaceTime call where I got to see him. His eyes were closed and his breathing was labored, and so was mine, as I wailed and told him how great he was, how I loved him. Hours later, surrounded by strangers, he moved on. No longer trapped in that bed, no longer impeded by legs that didn't work, no longer separated. He was living a better existence, a life unencumbered by dementia and untainted by COVID. And I can believe this because I am a man of profound faith. I don't follow any religion. I have confidence in people. I rely on the greatness of the world. I have trust that good will triumph over evil. And above all, I believe in God. I am dedicated to the power of that higher force. I can believe all of this. All of these lessons came from my father.
I just made myself a drink. Water over ice and a piece of canned pineapple. It's delicious. You don't look convinced. This drink was my favorite pre-lockdown beverage, except the pineapple was fresh then. I loved it. I felt healthy and refreshed while drinking it. I guess it's important for you to know that neither my husband nor I are drinkers. Neither my husband nor I were drinkers. Neither my husband nor I are drinkers. We are the boring couple. What's funny is when you invite people over for dinner and they know you don't drink, they bring several bottles of wine for themselves. I'm sure it's not so they can get through an evening with us. My husband is a great cook. They never drink all the wine they brought and end up leaving an unopened bottle or two for next time. Again, my husband's work in the kitchen assures there will always be a next time. When the world locked down, we, like most people, took inventory. Toilet paper, paper towels, canned goods, frozen food. Oddly enough, our biggest stockpile was wine. 13 bottles. We had purchased not one and had no need for them. But that was week 1. I don't remember when we opened the first bottle, but we drank it and we continued. Every couple of days, we started another bottle. Chardonnay, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc, Zinfandel, Rosé, and Cabernet Sauvignon. It didn't matter the wine or whether we liked it or not. We drank it. It quickly became my habit to take a glass of wine to the hammock, sipping in the great outdoors. So relaxing. Within 2 months, we finished the last bottle. Please understand, we had not become drinkers. When the lockdown ended, we were going back to our old ways. The wine was a distraction, a release, a gift of fermented freedom. But the lockdown didn't end, and apparently nor did its impact. This realization came to a head one day when my husband called out from the kitchen and asked, "Where did this bottle of wine come from?" I answered, "I got it from Mrs. Rosen next door." He asked, "What happened to social distancing?" Relax. She was on her side of the fence. I was on mine. We were discussing the state of the world. She asked if we were out of anything, and I said wine. She suggested a trade. He came in from the kitchen and asked, "And what did you have to give Mrs. Rosen for a bottle of Manischewitz Concord grape?" 3 rolls of toilet paper. And I disinfected the bottle and washed my hands. I hope she didn't wash the toilet paper. He went back into the kitchen without a word. I called after him. "What do you think of the deal?" He asked, "Have you ever had Manischewitz wine?" "No." "Well, if you drink it, you're going to be sorry you gave away that toilet paper." This really is delicious. And if you need a bottle of wine, I've got one to trade.
Lockdown. Sounds like a movie with The Rock. I would prefer an action movie to this. Now, for many people, this new life spelled boredom. For me, being locked in my house with a television and nothing else was a gift. I'm sorry, I'm a geek. We have to understand, television has been a major part of my life since I moved here from Vietnam at age 8. You know, my life truly changed as I sat in front of my little black and white 13-inch TV, you know, with the antennas. You have to move around once in a while just to get the right reception. I watched everything I could. Favorite show? Batman, Mission Impossible, Get Smart, Bonanza, Combat, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Mannix, so many. What am I saying? Of course, my #1 show was Star Trek. Live long and prosper. Oh, these programs captured my attention, grew my imagination, helped me to learn English more quickly. In front of the TV, I was never bored, never afraid, and totally oblivious to the world, to the historic events of the 1960s happening right outside my door at the time. I had no interest in it, and I was 8. I was in America, and I had TV. Well, when this fear of the unknown happened at the end of last winter, well, I sat down, picked up my remote. But now, instead of just a few channels, I have hundreds of cable stations and streaming services offering me a mind-blowing amount of diverse programming from every corner of the globe. Now, I could watch a police procedural from France, and then switch to a baking show from Great Britain, sci-fi from Russia, a documentary from the US, a rom-com from Korea, and no commercials. Complete series, one after another. My God, I truly was the kid in a candy store. And talk about binge watching. Oh, I watched, and I watched, and I watched. And having all this TV now made me think of the shows I used to watch when I was young, and how they lacked a worldview. I know it was a different time, and I was just a kid, didn't know any better, but still, you know what? My Star Trek did make a valiant attempt at diversity and inclusion. Its main cast included a black woman and an Asian man. In Mr. Sulu, I had a character on TV every week that looked like me. I mean, needless to say, television has come a long way, but now there are many, many more people on TV every week that look like me. And I can't truly describe how that makes me feel. Well, I'm not 8 anymore, and this lockdown has shown me that, once again, television is the path out for me. It still remains a retreat, but it's a window, not only to the outside world, but it offers us a view of who we are now, and how far we still have to go. And today, what happened today gives me hope that the future will be like the crew of the Enterprise. Different people coming together to work for a better cause.
I'm not sure exactly what you want me to say. Secluded. Isolated. Imprisoned. Trapped, okay? There, I'm trapped. Trapped in my house. I have worked remotely for years. I'm here, obviously, here on the East Coast. Our corporate office is in Chicago. People were always telling me how lucky I was. No commute, no dress code unless I had a video conference, no annoying workplace distractions. My company went through many changes very early. Reduced staff, reduced hours, reduced pay. But I was blessed to have a job. I knew that I was safe, protected, sealed off from the world. So my job let me stay, locked up. I was going to be healthy. I was going to remain who I was while we were locked down. So I put myself in a bunker, but a healthy bunker. No trips out of the house. Food dropped at my door. An espresso machine dropped at my door. The world stopped at my door. I ran up and down my stairs, morning and night. At lunchtime, I ran around my backyard like a hamster on wheels, round boot. For weeks, this life was the new norm. I was moving forward. I was going nowhere, but I was moving ahead. Then we had 3 straight days of no exercise, no backyard, dark clouds. I am someone who likes sunlight, needs sunlight. I open all the shades every day. Until nightfall, there is never a need for them. But it solitary confinement. And it felt unfair. On day 4, no rain, just ease. Overcast. Blackness. Then my mother called and FaceTime. Since my parents have retired and gone south, this is our most consistent means of communication. It was the same call we had had for 2 months. It's so scary. Yes, Mom. Another 1,000 dead. So terrible. Your father is going stir crazy. I'm sorry, Mom. Then she asked me this. Do you think we'll ever see each other again? Mom, I am looking at your face. You're seeing me right now. You know what I mean. I'm ready to hug you. That was it. The clouds left, but darkness stayed. Since then, it is all I can think about. How old my parents are. When will this ever end? Will I ever be able to travel to North Carolina to see them? How and when? Will I ever leave home again? I haven't exercised. I've stopped almost all communication with my friends. I do my work and I shut down. Sometimes at the end of the day, I hardly remember if I've eaten. I'm sure I'm ill. Of course I am. Only a sick person. Only a depressed person looks for therapy on a Zoom call. I have to get out of here. But I'm too afraid. It's like that movie, Into the Wild. I'm trapped. Like that kid who went to Alaska and died on the bus. He wanted to leave, but he was too sick to make the trip out. But it wasn't just a movie, it was life. I'm like him, but nobody. It's this house, this fucking house. I want out, and I want to sell it. It's become my prison. I just want to. Please, help me.
By the time the shock of what was happening finally sunk in, we were already spending most of our time in separate rooms. My husband took the den as his dominion, our 10-year-old son was in the family room, and our 14-year-old daughter was in her room, locked in her room. She had not been seen for weeks on end. Oh, sure, there were signs of nighttime eating, the same kind of nocturnal disappearance of food typically attributed to Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, or mice. My husband confirmed that our daughter was living by observing the data usage on her phone. And our son came up with the idea that she may have become a vampire. My husband and son discussed that possibility for far too long. But what else did they have to do? I was easy to find. I was in the breakfast nook looking outside the back window. My view was the trees, so I saw no change. Simply put, cars and people don't typically travel through my backyard, so I saw no change in the outside world. And when a family member called for me, I just said, "I'm in the breakfast nook." After about a month, my husband comes in and says, "It's not a breakfast nook after 3 p.m. and it's not a breakfast nook after 7 p.m. at night. Just say I'm in the kitchen." So after that, when anybody ever called for me, I just answered, "Here." At the 6-week mark, I summoned everybody in the family room and reluctantly they all appeared. The man and the boy were wearing turtlenecks. It was May. Clearly, they had indoctrinated themselves into the whole vampire theory. But I had a whiteboard set up and markers, and I announced that we were playing Pictionary. And someone pulled a card and drew. And pretty soon, we were laughing and hooting and feeling normal. And then my son pulled a card that was clearly a thimble. I yell out, "Thimble." He says no. My husband, who was in agreement that it was indeed a thimble, he yells out, "Cactus." And my daughter says, "What's a thimble?" So after 10 frustrating minutes, we gave up. And that's when my son announced that it was a lion. And my daughter holds up her phone and says, "Thimbles are stupid." And my husband looks at my son and says, "Have you ever seen a lion?" So after that, we decided never to play Pictionary again. Over the next several weeks, we tried games of every kind, card games, board games, these boring games, which all ended in a few days over some equally bizarre incidents such as Thimblegate, until finally we decided to play hide and seek. No rules, no need for artistic talent, no teams, everybody for themselves. Not exactly the point of family togetherness, but we've been playing hide and seek for weeks now, every night. And I'm sure they all hate it. But it has not caused fights or hard feelings, and well, there is mild cardio aspect to it, so I love my family, and I long to be with them out in this world. But for tonight, I don't want to see them. I'm it. And I haven't gone looking for them in over an hour. And I hope to God they fell asleep.
It's my habit to sit at my kitchen counter, having my morning coffee, reading the paper, or listening to the news on TV. My kitchen window curtains have been closed for a long time, partly because the house faces the east and the morning sun is too bright, but the real reason is I like my privacy. After a lifetime, I folded the paper and shut off the TV. There was too much sad news. And finally, there was too much privacy. So I pulled back the curtains. I decided my viewpoint needed to be brighter. So I sat with my coffee and watched the world. An occasional dog being walked, an even less occasional car Then one morning at 8 a.m., my next-door neighbor passed by. She was dressed in scrubs and was headed towards the hospital at the end of the block. After a week, I realized that this was her schedule. It was chilling to think that each day I saw her walking, she was heading into danger, walking to help. So one night, I baked muffins and made sure they were in a basket outside her door before 8 a.m. I sat with my coffee and looked out my windows. She passed by eating a muffin and carrying the basket. That night, I made cookies. The next morning, while I was looking for something to put the cookies in, I looked out my window and saw that the basket was empty on my front step. So I filled it and put it outside her door. On the third day, I made cinnamon rolls. On the fourth morning, there was no basket. I had scones waiting. Starting at 8, I looked out my window every 15 minutes. And then at 9:15, I saw her standing at the end of my path. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. "Are you off today?" "Yes." "I made scones." "How sweet." So I looked out my window and I saw the basket and a vase full of flowers. I said, "These are beautiful, thank you." And she said, "No, thank you." She said they were from the other nurses on her shift who I had been feeding. She said they were from her parents who were so grateful that she had such a kind neighbor. And that mostly they were a thank you from her to me. She said she had been walking between house and hospital every day in a trance, and then these treats came and it was a miracle. I picked up the vase and I said, "Thank you for what you're doing. Can I get you a scone?" She said, "Oh yes, please." I said, "My name is Cecilia." And she said, "I'm Stephanie. So nice to finally meet you."
Once again, thank you for inviting us into your home. Thank you for supporting the arts. And here, one last time, is your cast. Larry Shagawat, Jim Coe, Michelle Womack, Francois Chau, Renee O'Donnell, Suz Stone, and Leslie Silverman. Our hope is that the next time you see us, we will all be in a theater. Until then, please be happy and stay safe. Good night.